Hi, I'm Jonathan Jay, and welcome to dealmakers.co.uk, the number one place for business buying information. Now, for over 5 years now, I've been training other people on how to buy a business. And you may have listened to my business buying strategies podcast, you may have watched these videos. But today, what I want to do, I want to take you behind the scenes so that you can see exactly what goes into creating all of these videos and all of these podcasts. I hope you enjoy it. Well, we're here, haven't actually been to the studio before, brand new venue, very busy day ahead of us. We've got 3 podcasts to audio record for the Business Buying Strategies podcast and also to film for the YouTube channel as well. Also some content videos, got some great new content videos to record. Plus, starting very soon, make sure you subscribe to the channel, of course, we've got a day in the life of videos. Now, I did a whole series of these over the last couple of years, but we're bringing them back, but this time it's different. I'm going to do a day in the life of my clients. People are on my Mastermind program to find out about the businesses that they're buying and actually go to their place of work to actually see these businesses. It's going to be a busy day, so let's head inside. Ian, hi.
Hi, Jonathan.
How are you doing?
19, so we finish about 10 to 11 minutes.
So, Ian, over the last 40 years, you have bought and sold and exited and built and grown 8 businesses. So you are the true definition of an entrepreneur. So how did it all start 40 years ago? We won't do the entire 40 years, but how did it all start?
How it all started, my first role was as a runner in a dubbing studio. Then I wanted to become a film editor, so I was working in Soho, became a film editor, then migrated into a production company, and I was made redundant. And the film industry goes through up and down cycles. So I wanted to set up my own production company, but I had to get a job. So I got a job delivering paint of all things, driving around London. Again, I was made redundant from that. And at this point, I was thinking, no, I'm getting absolutely hacked off with being made redundant. I'm going to control my own destiny. So I said, that's it. I'm not working for anybody else ever again.
You raised an interesting point about corporate structure. So how the company or the assets of the company are acquired. And I understand your point that merging it into your existing business actually worked well, and it was absolutely fine. But as you know from being on Mastermind, the correct way, if we were to do it the textbook way, is to use those special purpose vehicle companies to acquire.
Yep.
And I have to say that in Mastermind going forward, I probably will place even more emphasis on this because of a few personal experiences where I've had leases for different properties all in the same company. And with the benefit of hindsight, I should have had those separated out, even more separation than I actually had in the business. I actually had this extra layer of special purpose vehicles for the leases, and I think it's a point that I'm going to be emphasising even more because it's all about that personal protection. You can never see around the corner. You never know what the future holds, and if that particular business or that particular part of the business or that particular property as in the property that you occupy, that you operate the business out of, if that ceases working or you have a difficult landlord, I've had difficult landlords, or the landlord wants to hike up the rent and all these different things, you have layers of protection. But if you get your corporate structure right, then you can extract the parts that don't work. But likewise, you can sell the parts that you want to sell, maybe because they have limited value to you, but they have strategic value to someone else. So it's like Lego. Yeah. Everything all fits together. But I guess 98, was that 30 years ago? Was it 30,
20,
right?
No, my son's 26. So no, he was born in 96. So yeah, 24 years ago.
24. Yeah, I'm ahead of myself. Yeah, absolutely. I should have been able to work that out. 24 years ago. Yeah. So a lot has changed in 24 years.
Yeah.
So you say that first acquisition was the springboard to larger contracts, going internationally. What was the development of the business thereafter?
Oh, we hit, if I remember, the Gulf War, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. And that was a significant impact because airlines stopped traveling. Therefore, a lot of international people stopped arriving, events. So like everything, it all goes in cycles, and we're going through a kind of sort of cycle at the moment. We rode through that. We had enough cash to see ourselves through. We'd moved into much larger premises in Isleworth, kind of a warehouse. So we had kind of our growing business. And then I think I got to the point that where I thought, not really enjoying this anymore. It was becoming, I don't know what it was that I didn't enjoy. And I actually looked to sell the business. And I ended up did sell the business. And it was a sale. As you find, there are certain people that want to sell just because they want to get out. So you're effectively selling it at a discount. I sold it essentially for balance sheet and a future profit. And I sold it to my old company that I'd sold.
Oh, really?
10 years previously.
Interesting. Yeah, quite often actually people do sell to someone they've had a connection with. It is said that if you buy a business from someone, the easiest person to sell it to is the person that you bought it from in the first place, because they have this seller's remorse and they think, oh, my life is empty without this business, and then they have the opportunity to buy it back. Is quite interesting. So let's talk a little bit about that, because the best person to buy a business from is a motivated seller. And typically that motivation comes from the sorts of things that you've just mentioned. You don't enjoy it anymore. There's also stress and ill health and maybe a lack of confidence in the future. You think, if I lose that contract and that contract, will this business really be viable? I may as well sell it now to someone who doesn't see the same downsides or risks that I can see, and then I can get what I want, which is time, freedom, money, not always top of the list money, but money in there as well, and the ability to do something else.
Correct.
I don't know about you, because I can only do one thing at a time.
I try and do too many things at the same time.
Right, okay.
I'm the epitome of a plate spinner. And my wife has a go at me for it. It's interesting you brought that up, because our family had a major traumatic event in the 2nd of January 2020. And I didn't work in my existing business for 6 weeks. My wife suffered a brain hemorrhage and she ended up in hospital. And then, of course, she was still in hospital when COVID started happening. Right. And I had a 12-year-old daughter as well. And everything. My daughter was just in a final year of university. There was so much going on. At that particular point, I really thought, do you know what? Maybe I just need to sell the business, because I'm not the right person to run this and take it forward. And it just needed that management. But we've moved through that. But even still now, my wife is suffering some of the after effects of it. She's got partial mobility. Right. And therefore, there's always this tear between, I want to spend time managing the business, running the business, and I've got goals and ambitions for it. Yet I've got my family there, and it's like you literally get torn apart. Yes, you feel guilt for not working with the business and the staff, and you feel guilt for the family, and it's navigating that. And sometimes it's like if someone comes along and gives you a load of money, but I wouldn't sell the business. Someone did offer me some money for the business, and I said, look, I know I'm not in a great place, but it's worth more than that. What advice would you give the people watching and listening to this who are thinking about buying a business but haven't actually taken that first step? They're clearly interested, otherwise they wouldn't be tuning into this. Yeah. But they haven't done anything yet. What would you say to those people? Get on learning, listen to podcasts. Mm-hmm. Get on your kind of fast track, which is what I initially did, I think, back into 2021. The Zoom program. The Zoom program. Then get on to the Mastermind or whatever slice works for them. There are many, many people. They've got a lot of different experiences. Some are new, some have been employed and have done a deal. You'll know more about those people than I do. But there's that collective thinking, collective ideas, listening to what happens at the hotel in Richmond, which is where the events I've been to, I think is absolutely vital. Read, learn, digest. Ian Leslie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And I look forward to having you back again in the future. Look forward to it. Ta-da. That's it. How'd you feel it went?
I enjoyed that. I know it's not about my enjoyment, but but I enjoyed that more than the Zoom interviews.
Good.
I think it's better.
What's looking someone in the eye?
Look
on the wrong path.
Yeah, exactly. It's a far better quality conversation, I think.
Well, you can both talk at the same time, whereas on Zoom you can't.
Yes,
One gets
if you
clipped
get
and you don't hear it.
get that slight slight time
And then
delay,
someone,
and yeah.
Oh, what did he say? He said something, but I didn't hear what he said.
Yeah. I think it's always interesting to hear someone's business experience, and when it spans 40 years, it's pre-internet. It's doing it, as you said, the old-fashioned way with fax machines, and it shows that the business principles from 40 years ago still apply today. Having the right people around you, having someone who's strong on the finances, and the message that comes through loud and clear from all of the interviews that I do is that procrastination is the killer. Putting things off doesn't make the decision any better. And the people who take action are the people who get results. Not too surprising, but that is the message that comes through loud and clear again and again and again. Sorry for interrupting your video, but I wanted to introduce you to a great lawyer in the UK who can get your deals done for you. He's worked for 50 of my mastermind clients in the last few months alone. His name is John Andrews, and I've got his details right here in my little black book of contacts. You can phone him on 0345 241 2494, or you can email him on johnandrews.deallawyer@jmw.co.uk. If you want someone who can get a deal done, he is your guy. So let's get back to the video. Okay, I should be able to hear you now. I can. Yes, I'm good. Good to meet you. Sorry about the slight delay. It's the first time we've used the studio, so we're just sort of finding our feet a little bit and figuring out how it all works.
So, Johan, you are the managing director of On Point Accounting, and your colleague Martin is on my current mastermind program, and I think you've met a few of my other clients along the way as well. How have you been helping those clients? And tell us a little bit about what you do at your accounting firm.
Cool. Yeah. So I've met quite a few of your clients over the last 2 years. Many of them are just initial phone calls. We help them just sense check the business that they're looking at acquiring. They come to us saying, these are the accounts, look, it's nice and profitable. And then we go and look at, we go into the balance sheets, and it might be profitable, but profit is a figure that can be moved on paper. What's more important is how's the cash flow. Now you've got a load of loans in there, credit cards in there, for example, hire purchases. How does that all impact on the cash flow? And if the cash flow is not right, the deal just can't go ahead, because if it's not going to support the day-to-day running now, how's it going to support the deferred income?
Exactly.
So we spend quite a lot of time just getting people to think more around cash flow. Cash flow is the blood of business over a profit figure, and profit and loss and balance sheets. Clever accountants out there will do clever things.
Absolutely.
So what's actually in the bank account, they can't really do much about that. That's what you need to run the business. It's what you're going to potentially use as initial consideration. It's what's going to keep the business running as you grow and invest in that business. So we get them thinking more about the cash flow and how they're going to run the business on a day-to-day basis, rather than it's got a profit. This is the multiplier. I'm going to make this offer.
Sure. And the profit, as you say, is it's just something that's written down. It doesn't necessarily translate into cash, and you need cash to pay the bills and yourself.
Now, commercial finance, it's nowhere near as cheap and friendly as the personal finance world is. They're going to do. Some of them will charge you commercial consulting fees. Some of them are then going to charge you a percentage of the money you've borrowed. Then they're going to get a kickback from the bank as well for putting the business their way. It's a good industry to be in if you can be. But if you're going to pay them that kind of money, then why do everything twice? Let them do that financial due diligence. Make sure it's affordable
Sure.
as a business model. and then we can come in and tie up the loose ends for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you deal from an accountant's perspective with the owner of a business who says that they have assets, fixed assets of a certain value, they've got stock of a certain value, and they want 100% of that value right here, right now, otherwise they're not doing the deal?
I mean, I tend to leave it in the acquirer's hands to decide whether that's what they're going to do or not. If they can afford it, that's their choice. But I would always say, look, you're going to go in there, you're going to find a dent on that car, which means it's not going to actually be as valuable as possible as it should be on the books. And ultimately, the way we value things in the accounting world, it's a very old-fashioned, centuries-old process with assets and depreciation. You know, it used to be I would buy a PC and that would go on my, that would go on as one of my assets, and that would sit on my balance sheet and depreciate over 5 years. If you go out as a graphic designer and buy a PC today, you and I know you're probably going to sell that PC within a year or scrap it because it's not powerful enough anymore to do what you need to do. So is that an asset to your business, or is it just an expense? Same with photographers and their SLR cameras, etc. Assets and depreciation have become a real grey space. So I don't normally count cameras and computers and laptops as assets because they normally don't last more than a year. And if you try to sell them after that year, they're probably pretty worthless. Whereas there'll be a huge balance on the asset sheet if you look at the value through depreciation method. So I would always recommend that the owner, the acquirer, goes in and views that stock. Is it in date? Is it in good condition? Is it what they say it is? And does it have the value they say it actually has? And the same with the assets. And again, if you're getting asset finance, they are really good at checking the value of any assets that you're going to try and finance.
Absolutely.
So it's a really good due diligence stage for you to do. You know, if you're going to go into a company that's got a fleet of vehicles, then get your asset finance people to go and have a look at it and see what they come back with as an offer, because they're going to validate the value of those assets beyond your balance sheet that you're looking at from the vendor.
Yeah, because they understand the resale value, which of course is their security should the loan default. So the question I always ask, Johan, towards the end of these interviews is people listening to this podcast, thinking about buying a business, they're watching the video, they're thinking, I'm interested enough to watch the video and listen to the podcast, but I haven't actually done anything yet. I haven't made that first step. And usually it's that it's fear of the unknown, isn't it? It's fear of making a mistake. So what sort of advice would you give those people?
No, I mean, I'll give you an example. I always think, so my advice is take that first step. Get on with it. You've got nothing to lose, everything to gain. If that first step is sending out some letters, it's going to cost you however much it costs you in stampage, paper, printing. But if you don't send out those letters, you'll never know. There's people that were in social network groups that I'm in that were looking at starting their accounting firm 5 years ago when I started mine. They're still looking. They're still finding every excuse in the world to not be ready to do it. I need to write my risk assessment policy. I need to do this. I need to decide on what software I'm going to do for this. I need to build my website. Well, 5 years down the line, I run a group of 6 different accounting brands, and they're still sat there saying they're going to need to do something. If you don't take that first step, you're not going to get anywhere.
What fantastic advice. It's been a really interesting interview and a subject that we don't cover very often actually on these interviews. So it's really good to get an accountant's insight into everything. And I'm sure when you do the next acquisition and the next one and the next one, we'll be catching up with you on a future interview as well.
Hello.
Cool. How's life with you? What are the subjects that you know resonate the most with business owners that I can ask you questions about?
So Paul, tell me about this grown-up business concept of yours.
Okay, so for me, this has come out of over 17 years of helping entrepreneurs to kind of build and scale businesses. And in particular, I've helped over 500 companies go beyond £1 million in turnover and then create 7-figure exits. This year alone, we've done in excess of £27 million worth of clients who've exited for realised that shareholder value. So for me, there's this concept of a grown-up business. And I think there's nothing wrong with having a lifestyle business if you understand that's what you're building. But if you want to create something that has shareholder value that somebody would buy, whether it's private equity, someone else in the industry, or a trade sale, or actually you may sell to your team, which is becoming an ever more popular kind of exit strategy, then in my opinion, it's a grown-up business, right? And that's one that can function without you, that can scale without you, that has very clear leadership, has a great team, and has scalability and profitability, and that pays you like an investor. So it should pay you like an investor, give you the lifestyle of an investor, but at the same time scale whether you're there or not. And for me, that became the goal. And when I analysed clients who'd done that and successfully exited, there's a formula for it. There's a framework for it. There's a methodical approach to doing it. And when most people get into trouble, it's usually because, in my experience anyway, that you can get to £1 million of revenue or $1 million of revenue by hustle and hard work, and probably a small core team of 5, right? So today with the tech and the distribution platforms, and you can usually get to $1 million in revenue, some way or shape or form hustling. But the challenge becomes then is that to go from 1 to 3 or 3 to 5, it's a different strategy. It's different things. You need different levers to do that. There are different issues, right? So like if, to go to $1 million, it's all about sales and lead gen. That's the bit that everybody gets excited about, because if you don't crack that, you're not going to get to $1 million. But to go from 1 to 2 and 2 to 5, it's going to become team. It's going to become systems. It's going to be infrastructure. It's going to be the internal things that if you don't understand they're the levers and the way you need to make the investment, and you think you'll just hustle harder to get to 2 million, you'll end up in a mess, burnt out, or in some kind of challenge, or some health issues or whatever.
And probably with a business that really doesn't have value to someone else, because it's all based upon your personal hustle.
Well, yeah, it's you've got a job, haven't you? Now, it might be, and I'll give you an example, right? So somebody recently approached me, came to me and said, look, I'm thinking I should either sell my business or I'm going to close it. And I'm like, well, that's 2 fairly dramatic exits. Like, what? And he goes, I've been running it for 35 years. I'm just burnt out. I'm tired. I'm in my late 50s and I don't want to do this anymore. And my wife said I need to change it. And I was like, okay. Now, from an external perspective, you'd look at that individual and go, they're very successful, right? They've got, a very nice house worth seven figures, no debt. They've got all the nice cars that most people would stick on their dream boards. They take, 3-4 holidays a year. If you went down the checklist of what most people aspire to, you would call that success. Mm-hmm. However, if you actually looked at his life in terms of whether he's enjoying his life at that point, not very much. And if you looked at his business, we're talking about a 5 million revenue business with really good EBIT profits. But actually, he was the engine. He was the economic engine. If you took him out of that business, there's nothing, all the knowledge is in his head. All the intellectual property is sitting in his head. Therefore, I can't buy that business because I can't buy 30 years worth of experience. What I need to do, what we've coached him through doing is, start building a team. So about hiring the right people in first, learning how to delegate to those people, learning how to put systems in place, learning how to take all the IP out of his head and turn it into software, into processes, procedures, things that other people can use and can run, so that we can create lasting value and real shareholder value that can be purchased. And I think that's where, and he's now realizing that actually that asset that he thought he was just going to have to close and walk away, actually there's a potentially, 4 or 5 million pound plus exit when he's ready to do it.
And that's a big difference to just closing it down and walking away.
Yeah. But so, for some people that, getting all your debts paid off, having a great lifestyle and earning a nice living and retiring is success. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. But if you're somebody that goes, actually, I want a life-changing sum of money, then at some point you're going to need to build it for that exit, and you're going to need to have a plan of how I create shareholder value that someone else is going to want to buy. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to last year on my grown-up business retreat, where we take everybody to Spain, and you're going to be a part of it this year, hopefully, which is exciting. And we had somebody come and talk about how they built an £89 million business in the travel industry. And the biggest lesson, I think, from that conversation for me was that they were very clear from day 1 or 2 when they opened their second shop, their second travel agent, exactly who they wanted to sell to at the end of the journey. So when they were building out 50, 60, 70 travel agents, every single decision in that process was, is this going to make the business more attractive to this person who wants to buy it? And I think so many entrepreneurs get to the end of the journey having, worked really hard, built something they think is of value, either not realizing that it's not a value because it isn't structured right. So it doesn't run without them. It doesn't have a team. It doesn't, hasn't got any, unique selling point. It is in a competitive market where there's no proprietary way of doing business. They're in a red ocean, as I would refer to it. And then they get disillusioned and disappointed when they can't sell it because everyone looks at it and goes, actually, there's no value here. And I think one of the biggest things I've seen people make the mistake of is they equate time running the business to value, and it isn't.
Yes.
And it took me a long time to realize that people and people would say, I've been running this business for 15 years. And I'm like, nobody cares. I think some of the biggest robberies in history have happened in boardrooms over pieces of paper where it looked very innocuous and people thought, I'm getting a good deal. And it turned out 2 years later that they got absolutely, robbed blind. But
exactly.
I think I'd go back and say, if you're planning to build a grown-up business for exit, if that's the goal, and it doesn't have to be, but if it is, then you've got to be very clear on what your walkaway deal looks like before you start talking to anybody. So I'll always say to people, look, write it down on an envelope. Like, what's the amount of cash that you want? How many years do you want to be tied in? What does your ideal deal look like? Put it in an envelope, seal the envelope, and put it in a safe somewhere. And then when someone rocks up and says, oh, here's a deal for your business, go to the envelope. And if the deal's better than what's on the envelope, take it.
Exactly.
If it's not, don't. But don't get seduced by the numbers all because you're having a bad month or a bad quarter, or you've just had your key management team person leave and you're emotionally vulnerable right now, which is what everybody preys on. I mean, I get it. That's how it works.
So much of your the way you value your own business is based upon your current level of confidence in that business, which is what I think you've just said, but in a different way. So if you have a bad sales month, your key salesperson leaves, and it's like, how are we ever going to replace them? They're irreplaceable. Then your belief in the value of the business goes down. So if that wily business buyer comes along at that moment and gets you in that moment of weakness, then you might end up making a decision that you would not have made if you had greater confidence in the business. And I think a lot of the work that you do is around building confidence in a business by having those structures and processes.
It is the structure and process, but it's also about the level of leadership that you need that you're at. So we talk about 3 stages, like level up, team up, scale up. And first of all, normally you've got to level up the leader in terms of their thinking, their language, their vision, their values. Most people have it's not been strategically thought out. It's organically evolved. I started the business because I had a passion for, fixing cars, and then I ended up hiring 2 or 3 people, and suddenly I've got 25 people in a body shop. And I never actually sat there and thought, okay, hang on a minute, where's the market moving? I mean, this is a question that most people don't ask, and it's one I always like to start with, which is, right, how are you making your money now? How are you going to be making your money in 3 years' time? Because, the money's always moving. If we take vehicles, right now, if you were an investor and you were, and I was talking to a college about this the other day, and I said, what do you, they got me to talk to young people coming through the college. And I said, so I see you've got a motor vehicle course. What are you training them on? They said, we're training them on petrol combustion engines. I'm like, why? That's a dead industry. It's like, it's dying, it's dead. We know it ends. It has to end by law in 8 years' time. It's finished. Why are you not training all these kids on electric engines and electric vehicles, right? EV stuff. Because if you train them on EV stuff, they're going to have jobs. People are going to be throwing jobs at them because there are not enough people for the shift in that market, and the money is moving into that market. That's where it's moving. And I think as entrepreneurs, we deserve to take time out, which is why it's so important, I think, to get out of your business on a regular basis and go, okay, hang on a second. The world's changing very fast. Where's the money moving next? Because just because you're in the seam of cash flow now doesn't mean that's going to be there in 2 or 3 years' time. And I think if you're able to say to a potential investor, look, we've looked at the market and we've assessed, and the money's moving here next, and we're already positioning ourselves for that, so that when you buy it, you're going to ride that wave. That makes you way more attractive, because they're like, oh, okay, great. It's clearly you're thinking ahead. You understand the market. You've seen where the money's going next. Great. That gives me increased confidence in you as an investment, which is what it is. That I should look at this. And for me, but again, it's I often say this, is that your next great idea won't come while you're sat behind your desk. It doesn't. Never, right? You have to get out of your environment. You have to get out of the office. You have to get sometimes out of the country, which is why I'm a big believer in taking people off-site to hotels, to, retreats in other countries.
Some of my best ideas when I'm on the plane going somewhere.
Because you detach from
no
reality.
Phone, no emails. And just for a few hours, no one can disturb me or interrupt me. And that's when I get out the pad and the ideas. Let me ask you the question I ask everyone at the end of these podcasts and interviews. It's people listen to this podcast, watch this video, and they are interested in buying a business, but they sit on the fence. And they sit on the fence sometimes for years. And they come and tell me, they say, Jonathan, I've been listening and watching you for years and I just haven't done anything yet. What do you say to those people?
I'll share a personal story if I may, to kind of, if you're sitting on the fence, okay? So coming up, this time, so this, in the next kind of end of the next couple of weeks in terms of where we are in the summer, 7 years ago, I was very much one of those people. I would kind of go, look, I can, I'll have tomorrow to do it. I can do it tomorrow. I can do it tomorrow, right? And for various reasons and things like that, I ended up getting really quite sick and ended up having a serious heart attack and being clinically dead for 4.5 minutes.
Paul Avens, been a great interview. Thank you very much,
Right,
and I'm
thanks for
sure
having me.
we will see you again.
Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you. It has been a very productive day. We've been filming all day, recorded 3 podcast episodes as well, and we brainstormed all of our ideas for the day in the life of videos, where we're going to go down to the businesses that have been bought by my clients on my Mastermind program and find out what it took to buy those businesses. It's going to be so much fun, so make sure you're subscribed to this channel, like this video, tap the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video.